Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of your Leatherman Skeletool CX. First I want to thank my buddy Jim for sending this along. It's a very nice little multi-tool that I really never have quite picked up because, well, for a long time my everyday carry was actually one of these guys, which is a little Leatherman squirt that's been mod beyond recognition. Beyond that, I've also, had a Leatherman Wave that I've loved and a charged TTI and whatnot, and the Skeletool promises to be a lighter weight version of something like your Wave that you can really carry every day. And so that's pretty interesting, and it's almost made me buy these a bunch. So what's in a Skeletool? Oh, and for size comparison, here's your Spyderco Delica. So what's in a Skeletool in terms of tools? Well, first off, you got a knife here in 154 cm steel, which is nice. You have... You got a pair of pliers with some wire cutters in there. You've got a carabiner on the end here, which also doubles as a bottle opener. You've got a bit driver here with swappable, they're using the same Leatherman bits, which are actually surprisingly good. And you even get a spare bit tucked in over here, so you can pop that out. So that's the tools that you get on your Skeletool CX. Those are your features, and let's just go on ahead and jump into the good, the bad, and the ugly as always. The good here is that, first and foremost, the knife here is 154 cm, and 154 cm is a good-to-go kind of steel. I got no problems with it at all, and, I like it a lot. So that's a wonderful thing. This is a competent enough knife, although it's got a whole lot of belly to it, but it works just fine. Another area where it works just fine is the opening hole. They've kind of put in half of a Spidey hole here, and luckily they put in the important half. So it's easy enough to open with one hand, no problem at all. The blade locks, and it actually locks up pretty securely. And I hope you can see this here. One little nice detail is that there's a washer surrounding the blade that actually stops the lock bar. So this knife can't suffer the liner lock failure where the lock bar goes to the other side of the blade. It's prevented from doing that, which is just a nice little thing, and I'm glad they thought about doing that. That shows somebody at Leatherman is thinking when they're designing this lock. And so the lockup is pretty solid, and, yeah, like I said, 154 cm is good to go. It has this bit driver here, and the bit driver is actually, it does have the lock for the bit, and that's more than can be said for some of the other tools in the Leatherman lineup, so I appreciate that. Because the bit is basically carried externally, I mean, you can see it's just hanging out between the parts of the carabiner here. That's a really, really good thing. You're not going to randomly lose your bit, which is something I've always been a little bit concerned about. And then it does actually have a built-in clip to it. And so that's a nice thing compared to on your Wave. The clip is a detachable third-party sort of accessory. So it's nice that that's built in. And so really, those are the good. You get a bunch of features. Well, at least a number of features with a really decent knife that's well implemented. And, yeah. So a lot of elements of good design here. Let's jump into the bad. Couple of bad things here. First and foremost, it's got a very short knife to it. And just to give you an idea, functionally, it feels to be about as useful as your Dragonfly knife, even though it's slightly longer. So don't expect to be getting a nice big knife out of this in the same way that you do off of your Leatherman Wave, which has a fairly large blade. And I understand that that's going to be better for some people, legally speaking, and certainly better at work, because it seems less weapony, but that's just something you got to keep in mind. The knife is tipped down only when it's clipped into the pocket, which is something that bugs me a little bit, but not a big deal. And the tool itself is very tough to open and close. I did try and lube it up, and I tried to work the action back and forth, but it's just not a very good feeling. It doesn't feel you're fighting it every time. And I'm not a big fan of that. A couple of other things I'm not a big fan of. The carabiner just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I get that it's also the bottle opener, but I feel like this is a little too heavy to, say, throw on your belt loop on a regular basis. Maybe, maybe it makes sense. But to me, I think I would have rather had the tool that was shaped more like this and didn't have the carabiner at all. That would have been more convenient for me in the pocket. But, hey, whatever. And if you actually love the carabiner, do let me know in the comments, because I'd love to get other opinions for the viewers who aren't, crazy people like me. So there you go. The clip, to me, feels like it's on the wrong side, because when it's hanging in your pocket, here, let's simulate right side carry. When it's hanging in your pocket, the clip is towards the edge of your pocket, and then the rest of the blade is just hanging free. I would have much preferred that they mount the clip on this side, so that way you could clip the knife in and kind of tuck it into the very corner of your pocket so it hangs away from everything else that you grab it into. It's not a big deal, and it's okay carryable as it is, but that's, to me, a missed opportunity. And I feel like not enough manufacturers are thinking about how that would actually fit in the pocket there. Little bit of a problem. One tool that's missing to me that is spectacularly useful is some kind of a pry bar tool. Probably the most regularly used tool for me on my wave is this little guy, maybe next to the pliers. And this is just a screwdriver / little pry bar kind of affair. And it's so damn useful for getting up under things, for just doing little prying, scraping things that you'd never want to use a knife for, particularly one in ZVP. But, and you can see this is dirty because it gets used all the damn time. I think I was swapping out headlights the other day. But regardless, it's not a really... That's something that's missing here, and I really, really miss. You could take out the flathead driver bit and use that, but then you're damaging your driver bit, and it's just not really ideal. So I would really like to see some kind of a dedicated pry tool built into this for it to be a really feature-complete tool for me to carry in my everyday life. But maybe I'm a little bit weird. And then finally, for me, the ergos on this are just not great. For the knife, it's actually okay. I got no real problem with this here. My only possible complaint is that if you're really bearing down, it's easy for your index finger to kind of start to depress your lock bar, and that makes me a little queasy. But, it's not the end of the world, and I didn't have any trouble with it, certainly. The pliers are just not comfortable to use at all. Because you're holding on to, effectively, this surface here. So you've got a really good hot spot going right there, as well as from this and from this. And so, for me, you can actually see from really working on this in the last couple of days, it's kind of dug in a little bit and left a little bit of a mark on my hands. And given I'm not, super calloused out though I'm an office drone, but still. The pliers are just no good in that way ergonomically. And the twisting the driver can be a little awkward because you've got two options. You can either hold it like this and twist, or you can kind of use it in an L shape, and that gets you more torque, but nonetheless, there's not a really great way to use the driver on this particular unit. Just not ideal, and because it's so off-centered and curvy, trying to keep it onto a screw is very, very tricky. And so, again, it's a good tool for getting all of these things together in a small package, but none of the tools are super effective because of the ergonomics. Although the knife is fine. So there's your bad. Your short knife, tip down only, kind of weird carabiner that doesn't need to be there, no pry bar, and some questionable ergos. Let's go into the ugly. Couple ugly things. First and foremost, a lot of people have broken the pliers on this using them, where just one of the chunks of the pliers just cracks right off. Apparently Leatherman's pretty good about replacing them when it happens, but that's just something you really got to keep in mind here. These are not hard-use tools by any stretch of the imagination. And for me, the biggest ugly part is this comparison right here. Your Leatherman Wave versus your Skeletool CX. And I've been wondering to myself, why would I ever grab your Skeletool, my Skeletool over my Wave? And in the few days carrying this loaner, it's just not super compelling, because neither of these tools feels great in the pocket. They're both fairly large and bulky. I mean, if you look at them size-wise, the Wave is only marginally larger than your Skeletool. So it's not like you're getting something that's small and lightweight out of that. Yes, it is true that the Skeletool is lighter in weight. It's 5 ounces, as opposed to 4.86 ounces here. So the Wave is almost double the weight. Well, not quite, but still. It is substantially heavier than your Skeletool. But the thing is, this is maybe half the weight, but it's only a quarter of the tool in terms of functional purpose for me. It's missing some important things, like your pry bar, your things like that. And so for me, if I know I'm going to be needing a multi-tool, I really feel like I'd want to carry the Wave and pay a little bit of weight penalty to have a whole lot more functionality available. And the Skeletool is only $20 less. You can sometimes get them cheaper on sales and things like that, but this is $60, and this is like, this is like 66, and this is like $88. So about $20 difference. So it's not like you're getting a screaming deal off of your Skeletool here. And so for me, well, okay, the Skeletool is really not for me. because it's way too big and heavy to replace a knife. I tried carrying it as basically a knife replacement, put it in the same place in my pocket, and it's just big and it's heavy, and it's just not that it's not that well designed for carry like a knife. And there's not enough function to justify the on-body carry. I mean, yeah, it's got some tools, but the couple of times I needed tools, they weren't ones that this had. I think I needed a pry bar, and what else did I need? Either way, I needed another tool that wasn't, I needed a file, and this doesn't have a file on there. So, there wasn't enough functionality for me to justify this being big on my body. And if I'm going to carry this off body, if I'm going to keep this in my pack or something, why would I bring this when I could bring this and have something that is just universally better ergonomically for the tools, that has a wider selection of tools, and where you're not really paying much of a price in terms of weight. So your Skeletool CX kind of left me a little bit cold. This could be very good if you need only these tools. If you only need a knife, a driver, a pair of pliers, and a bottle opener. And maybe a carabiner for some reason. And you need to carry that on body. You can't have any kind of a pack. And you don't really need to use those tools that often. Because if you're going to be using this all the damn time, if you always need pliers, these are just not great pliers to use. Or if you always need a screwdriver, oh my God, you do not want to use this that often. So, I mean, in that weird situation where you need something that's lighter than the wave, and it needs to be carried on body, and you only need these tools, I can see the Skeletool being kind of compelling. But for me, honestly, anytime I would grab the Skeletool, I'm just going to grab the Wave instead and get more functionality at a little bit of cost to weight. Maybe if you're on a bike tour or something where every ounce counts, your Skeletool makes more sense. But for me, it really doesn't. So that's my final verdict. It's a very interesting tool, and it could be very good for some people, but it really isn't for me. And for my taste, at least, I would recommend you go Wave over Skeletool and just get, a whole bunch more functionality out of the deal. I hope this has been helpful to you all, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day.